There are many similarities and differences between Romanesque and Gothic art and architecture. The Romanesque period was from the 11th century to the late 12th century, while the Gothic period followed immediately after, from the late 12th century into the 15th century. One main similarity between Romanesque and Gothic art and architecture is the subject matter. Art and sculpture was religious, and cathedrals were extremely popular in both time periods. Similar things were made in both time periods, but in different styles. Romanesque art and architecture is so named because of the obvious influence from Roman art and architecture, notably rounded arches, decorated column capitals, barrel vaults, and groin vaults. Romanesque cathedrals were very sturdy, solid, and simple. Cathedrals in this time were basilican planned. Romanesque cathedrals also often served as pilgrimage churches, and therefore had side aisles and ambulatory and radiating chapels for pilgrims for when they came to the church. Gothic architecture is characterized mostly by pointed arches, flying buttresses, ribbed vaults, and extreme decorations. Gothic cathedrals often have a large rose window on the facade and are also characterized by an airy quality due to the extreme ornamentation on the facade. There is also a huge emphasis on verticality in Gothic architecture. Gothic cathedrals were normally split into 3 levels: the nave arcade, the triforium, and the clerestory. Though stained glass windows were introduced during the Romanesque period, they were really mastered and widely utilized during the Gothic period. Architecture techniques were more advanced during the Gothic period and allowed for more windows and more complex features than Romanesque cathedrals. Flying buttresses were used in Gothic architecture as a form of support. You can see obvious differences between Romanesque and Gothic cathedrals. The Romanesque cathedrals are shorter, heavier, sturdier, and more simple, like Saint Etienne in Caen, France, while Gothic cathedrals are taller, lighter, and more ornamented, like Amiens Cathedral in Amiens, France. Tympanum reliefs and illuminated manuscripts were common during the Romanesque period and carried into the Gothic period. The main stylistic difference between the two periods is the more advanced techniques and heightened emotion and drama used in the Gothic period, which is characteristic of Gothic art. The figures in the tympanum reliefs and illuminated manuscripts are a lot more defined in the Gothic period than in the Romanesque period. The Gothic tympanum pictured here, the Death of the Virgin, shows figures with defined emotions. Gothic figures are often characterized by an S-shaped curve. This can be seen in the Gothic illuminated manuscripts as well as Gothic sculpture. Romanesque sculpture was a lot more rigid. As you can see, the subject matter in Romanesque and Gothic art is very similar, yet they look so different. The Romanesque Madonna and Child is very stiff, while the Gothic Madonna and Child and Pietà show more emotion. The Morgan Madonna, from the Romanesque period, is very rigid and strong and doesn't really convey an emotion. On the other hand, the Virgin of Jean d'Avreux, from the Gothic period, not only displays the characteristic Gothic S-curve, but it depicts the Virgin Mary as a caring mother. The Virgin Mary is seen generally as a more forgiving figure than Jesus, and this statue shows her softer, more forgiving nature. Also, the Rotkin Pietà, also from the Gothic period, displays heightened emotions. At the time it was made, in early 14th century Germany, the people were poor and suffering, and the statue conveys those emotions. It serves as a reminder to people that Jesus suffered as well, and that therefore they are understood. Overall, the Gothic style built off the Romanesque style, and architecture made in the Gothic style was able to be more complex because of the new architectural techniques. The Gothic style took what was done in the Romanesque period and exaggerated it, made the cathedrals taller and more decorated, and made figures in art and sculpture show more emotion.